There'll be no need for that. You see, I planted that device ahead of time.
What
it's
the heck?
fake.
What the heck?
Come on, man,
They
use your
planned
noggin.
this.
You really think an innkeeper would set up traps just to keep pervs like us from getting close to the women's bath? That kind of thing only happens in anime. You guys tricked
Dude,
me.
what is with all the fourth wall breaking in this show?
Like backstabbing traitor. Since you've done this kind of thing before, we knew we needed to test you.
What? Done this
He's
before?
in there.
I don't remember that episode, and anyway, I haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah, well, let's put that to a vote. Those who think Junichi Hashiba is innocent of treason.
Aye.
All those who know he's guilty. Aye.
Screw the popular vote!
Oh, get over it. You lost fair and square.
Get back here, traitor! Damn it! I've got to get out of these woods somehow!
Nope. He's not dead, is he?
Is he dead? Of course not. He's the main character. And we still have 2 episodes to go.
And that's it. I'm done. I'm done. What is up, all you individuals out there? It's me, full-time anime man. And before I get started with this video, I'd just like to say thank you for the people that supported the first part of this series. I really hope that we get this show on the road. And, yeah, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the story. This is What If Deku Had a Shadow Wolf Part 2. Hope you all enjoy. Where we last left off, Izuki had murdered her caretaker, Hisashi Midoriya, who in the beginning abused Izuki, physically and mentally. But one day, little Izuki had enough of all this abuse and torture that she let a bad side of herself show. Soon after, a man by the name of Shigaraki found little Tomura, and he adopted her. We pick up where we left off. After a while of walking, the two would make it to his house. All for One would bathe Izuki. And while bathing her, he noticed all the bruises and marks all over her body, and would notice the hell that this child had endured. In some ways, he felt sorry for her, for she was only at 4 years old. When nighttime came, All for One decided to make something for Izuki, but considering the fact that he had no way of communicating with her because she hasn't spoken a word, he decided to make his dining room look more like a restaurant type with candles and cloths covering the table. He would then bring out a menu of some sorts with pictures of food that children like, such as spaghetti, macaroni, etc. Little Izuki would choose the macaroni. He would make the food for her. As she sat down at the table waiting for the food to show up, he managed to bring it to her, but when the food hit the table, he noticed that Izuki's face was sad. "What's the matter?" asked All for One. Izuki just took the plate off of the table, and she placed it on the floor, where she ate it. "Wait, hang on, why are you eating off of the floor?" Izuki's ears droop down, and she makes that sound that dogs make when they're sad. And she crosses her arms over her head, thinking that she's about to be punished, but instead she feels a comforting hand on her head. She looks up. "Hey, I'm not going to treat you like how that man did. You're living with me now. You eat at the table. Here, come on, I'll teach you how to use the utensils." He picks her up and puts her back on the chair and teaches her how to use a fork and spoon. All for One lays Izuki down for sleeping, and he informs her that he's going to take her to a doctor tomorrow to see what her quirk is. But when that time came, and the doctor examined Izuki, when the doctors examined Izuki, they found that she does not have a quirk. Although they were a bit thrown off considering the wolf ears and other sorts of features that should point out to a quirk. but they were just stumped. Well, that's impossible, said All for One. I saw it in action. All for One then takes the doctor to the corner and he tells the doctor to strike him. Why? Asked the doctor. You'll see, just do it. The doctor does strike All for One, but didn't really do much. He just made it look like it hurt. And Izuki saw this. Seeing this doctor hit the man that showed her kindness, filled her with rage, and Hati then appeared from her body and started attacking the doctor. But All for One lunged over to Izuki and told her to calm down. He just wanted her to show him her quirk. Izuki would call Hati back to her and she would retreat into her body. The doctor had a few punctured teeth marks all over his body, but he'll live. I'm truly astonished. What was that? I do not know, said All for One. But I do know it's no mistake that I found this child. She is truly something special. Yes, truly something special indeed. I can do more research on her to thoroughly understand this, but there's another thing. I take it ever since you found her, she's never actually spoken a word. Well, that's because there's been some damage that was done to a certain part of her brain. I looked at her medical records and it just says here that she suffered some damage in her cerebrum. So that's one of the reasons why she's not talking. Interesting, said All for One. Alright, little Izuki. He kneels down to her level. I'm going to try a healing technique on you, okay? You gotta trust me. I won't hurt you. She nods her head. Okay. He then takes both of his hands and then places them behind her neck, and he would poke in certain spots. And Izuki would have this feeling in her head. It would heal her in some way. There. Now try to say something. Izuki would grunt and stutter a few times before getting 2 words out as tears run down her face. Thank you. She would then lunge at All for One and hugging him around his neck. You're welcome, child. Oh, man, need I say, that is some strength that you got there. I can tell you're very strong, too. That must be another aspect that you have. Well, I'm going to teach you how to hone your skills. And that's a promise. As Izuki continued to cry, we fade to black. And a few weeks would pass, and All for One would teach Izuki how to speak properly. Some words she had trouble getting because she just started learning to talk. But she was able to have conversations with him on certain levels. One day, while on a walk, Izuki and All for One were just walking about, getting her some fresh air. Until Izuki saw a kid her age in an alleyway next to a pile of trash. She then asked for her daddy to hold on. She calls him daddy. She said, "Daddy, hang on. There's someone over there." They both look, and before All for One could actually walk over there himself, Izuki ushered over to the kid. "Hey, are you okay?" This kid with light blue hair was driven back by Izuki because of what happened. He said, "Stay back. I don't want to." "Why? What's wrong?" said Izuki. The boy then reached down and grabbed a canister and raised it up, showing her that his fingers destroys anything that he touches. This put fear inside of Izuki, and she ushered behind All for One, hiding. All for One was interested. Hey kid, it's okay. We can help you. I can see by the look on your face you've been out here for a few days now. And yet no one's come to save you, haven't they? The world continues to grow more and more colder for those who are really needing of help. It shouldn't be so cruel to you. You didn't do nothing wrong. But don't worry. He extends his hand out to the boy and wants him to grab his hand. I'll protect you. The boy is a bit hesitant, but as he reaches for his hand, he flexes his pinky out as to not touch the man with all 5 of his fingers. Soon, the 3 makes it back to All for One's home. Izuki and the kid were just getting their introductions out the way. So, my name's Izuki. Shigaraki. What's yours? Oh, well, I'm Tenko Shimura. All for One was taken aback by that. He knew who owned that last name. Therefore, he tried to ask he tried to ask Tenko what happened and why was he on the streets, but when he thought about that moment, All for One's eyes widened, for he knew who owned that last name. Really? Well then, we'll have to talk about that later. But for right now, let's get you into some new clothes, shall we? Tenko smiles and says, okay. It's the next day, and Izuki and Tenko are sitting down talking to each other about their favorite things to do, or their favorite foods, etc. And then they talk about the topic of quirks. Izuki would mention that she's got what is not considered a quirk, but something of her own power. Really? Said Tenko. Can I see it? Sure, said Izuki. Izuki would call out Hati, her shadow wolf, and Tenko was a bit frightened by it, but immediately grew amazed by it. Wow, is that thing sentient? Sentient? What's that mean? It means capable of living and thinking on its own. Izuki looks at Hati. Are you? She nods her head. Wow, it can actually respond to you? When did you unlock this quirk? Well, actually, she's always told me she's been with me since my second birth, and that her real name is Hati, and she has this life dream of bringing about this thing called Ragnar. Ragnar. The wolf speaks. It's called Ragnarok, child. Oh, it speaks to you? Yeah, that's how we talk to each other, silly. Izuki giggles. But what about you? What can your quirk do? Tenko then looks down at his hands and he gets a flashback of a pile of ashes on the ground, but then is immediately brought back to reality when Izuki touches his shoulder. I don't know, to be honest. It would seem that I could turn anything that I touch with 5 of my fingers to dust or age at a rapid pace, but I can't really control it. Wow. You know, Tomura, you're very smart. You're saying such big and complicated words that I've never heard of before. How do you know these things? Well, I went to kindergarten for a while. Oh, well, can I go to kindergarten? Well, I mean, an adult has to enroll you. She turns her head sideways. Enroll? It means an adult has to put you in there. Oh, well, okay, let's go ask Papa Shigaraki if he could enroll us in school. Come on, Tenko. As she runs off to find Papa Shigaraki, Tenko didn't know what it was, but something about Izuki gave off this aura that felt impossibly pure, which made him feel something deep down. And she looks kind of familiar, like his sibling. Anyway, they get up and they go find Papa Shigaraki and Izuki asks him if he could enroll them in school. He would think about it for a second and says, well, if Tenko can get a good control of his quirk, then I just might consider it. At first, he was very scared of even the thought of practicing this quirk that destroys things that he touches. But Izuki would encourage him to at least try. What are we going to practice on? As the leaves began to fall from the trees outside from the August season, that's when Izuki gets the idea, saying that they should just use the leaves that are outside, so that way they have thousands of attempts, or maybe just hundreds. The two kids would try their best to control Tenko's quirk, but after many attempts, Tenko gave up. Out of frustration, he stomps off into the house and to his room. A sad Izuki would be left outside crying, for she feels like she's never going to help Tenko get control of his quirk. But then soon she felt Shigaraki's hand on her shoulder. All for One says, "Hey there, child. Why are you crying? What's the matter?" "Tenko can't control his quirk, and I feel like I let him down." All for One says, "Well, don't feel that way, little one. Mastering a quirk takes a long time and effort. Tenko just needs more time and rest. But the most important thing that I want you to understand, Izuki, is that when life comes to give you lemons, you never get down. And even if you do get down, you always got to put yourself back up and try again." She wipes her tears away. Okay. A few hours would pass. It was dark outside, and Tenko would come out of his room and find the living room where Izuki was just watching television. Izuki, "Hey, Tenko." Tenko, "Hey, I'm sorry about leaving like that. It's just, I just get so frustrated, and sometimes I just lose my cool." "No, it's okay. I understand. You were just angry that you couldn't get it. But that's okay. The important thing is that when you get down, you try again, and you get back up. That's something that Papa Shigaraki told me." Tenko sits down next to Izuki and says, "So, should we try again tomorrow morning?" Izuki was about to say yes, but she was interrupted by Hati, who appeared from her body and gave her a suggestion. Hati says, "Do you see the window with its darkness? Reach outside and grab a hold of that darkness and pull it in." A confused Izuki does this and is surprised, for she actually managed to grab a hold of what looks like a blob of shadow. Whoa! How did I do that? It's a skill you possess, child. That is only a fragment of what your true power lies. In the meantime, this will be your first step, shadow play. For those who did not see the list yesterday, shadow play is an ability that Izuki has where she is allowed to move or shape natural shadows that are around her. Izuki was surprised the way that it felt. It almost felt like Play-Doh. It was squishy, it was soft and stretchy. She shows it to Tenko, and he was surprised, and soon they get to practicing. And just like before, it was attempt after attempt. It was a fail. Tenko was getting frustrated, and he was just about to leave out of frustration again. But then Izuki got an idea. She would then grab more of these shadow fragments, and she would wrap it around her hand. And Tenko becomes concerned. Okay, try this. She extends her hand out, wanting him to shake it. Wait, no, said Tenko. I don't want to risk hurting you. That's the thing, Tenko. Use that as a reason as to not decay me. Just think that you really don't want to hurt me, and maybe that'll work. Hati appears from her body and says, Child, I'd advise against this. This other child can barely control his own moods, let alone control his own abilities. Well, I believe in him. I believe anything is possible. The important thing is that you believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself, Tenko. Just like I believe in you. Right? Tenko is moved by Izuki's kind words and in some way, she kind of reminds him of his elder sister, again, because of how kind she is. He looks at the palm of his hands, and he makes a fist. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. He's getting ready to try. He then struggles to keep his hand steady as he reaches for Izuki's hand, and she whispers, You got this. He closes his eyes, and then he grabs her hand. He said, Izuki, are you okay? Tenko, you're doing it. He opens his eyes, and even Hati is surprised that the darkness is staying intact. The two cheer out of excitement, and Hati says, Well, you've proven me wrong, child. Excellent work. Soon after, they practice on other things, such as TV remotes, action figures, and even Tenko's worst enemy, doorknobs. All of which didn't turn into dust. Time passes, the sun has risen, and the kids were called down for breakfast. And they take a seat, and Izuki says in an odd voice, Hey, Tenko, can you pass me the butter? Sure thing, Izuki. Here you go. They were trying to pass this on to All for One, trying to surprise him, but his thoughts were too deep in the newspaper. And then Izuki would ask, Hey Tenko, can you pass me the jelly for my toast? But All for One still didn't notice. The two would then sigh that their father figure did not notice. It wasn't until after they finished breakfast, Izuki informed All for One that her and Tenko were about to go outside to play. Okay, but just take it easy outside, said All for One. Of course. Come on, Tenko, let's go. He watches as Izuki takes Tenko by the hand, and he was surprised to see that Tenko actually mastered his quirk in what feels like a matter of hours. Tenko, you've learned to control your quirk. I'm fairly surprised. Good job. Thank you, Mr. Shigaraki. They shake hands, and Shigaraki says, Well, I guess a deal's a deal. I will enroll you two in school, but first, Izuki, we need to give you a little makeover. We then transition to the bathroom, Izuki having a sad look on her face. Do I really have to cut my hair? I like the way it is. It's long and beautiful. Shigaraki, All for One, says, I know, Izuki, but I can't risk having any adults recognizing you, especially after what you did to your father. We will also have to change your hair color. She sighs and says, Okay. Shigaraki hands her a pair of scissors and says, You need a new identity and a new name. You can call yourself whatever you want, but whatever you choose, that will be your name forevermore. Now, I need you to close your eyes and envision what will your new hair style be like, and what color, from black to what. Shigaraki, all for one, places his hands around her ears as to assure that she does not accidentally cut her ears. She then raises the scissors up to her head and would begin snipping off long strands of her hair. Those strands then hit the floor, and with each snip she grows even more and more disappointed that she had to cut her hair. When she had finished, Shigaraki said, "Now, you must pick a new color. There are an assortment of options that lie in front of you, and I want you to keep your eyes closed and pick one." She reaches forward, and with the tip of her fingers, she feels the bottles of hair dye in front of her. She moves her hand from left to right, not knowing what color she's going to pick, until her hand stops on a certain bottle. She picks it up and hands it to Shigaraki, all for one. And he says, "Okay, I'm going to apply this to your hair. Now hold still." After what feels like a few hours had passed, he was successful in dyeing her hair, leaving a few strands of black in it. "Okay, you can open your eyes." When Izuki opened her eyes, she was amazed at how beautiful she looked. It was like she was a whole new person. Her hair was short and green with black strands of hair as promised. "You look magnificent, Izuki. Now, for the next important thing." He kneels down to her level and says, "What is your name?" She thinks for a moment. She wants a name that really identifies with this new family she has. "I don't know." Shigaraki, all for one, says, "It's okay, child. I have a name for you. From this day forward, your first name will be Koe-san, and your last name will be Shigaraki." She smiles. "I like that." But from inside of her, she heard the voice of Hati. "Now, child, Koe-san in Japanese phrase means war, battle, and warfare. You do understand that, right?" Koe-san said, "It's fine, Hati. It was a name that was given to me by Shigaraki, all for one." Hati said, "Very well, Koe-san." We then transition to Tenko's room. He hears a knock at the door. "Come in," said Tenko. His door opens and it reveals Koe-san and her new look. Tenko was amazed at how beautiful she was. "Wow, Izuki, you look beautiful." She blushes and turns her head away to hide her face while saying thank you. "But my name's not Izuki anymore. It's Koe-san." "Oh, really? Well, that's a cool name." "Thanks. By the way, Tenko, Papa Shigaraki wants to see you as well." Tenko goes, and soon he comes back, and his new name was Tomura Shigaraki. Koe-san said, "Oh, he changed your name too?" "Yeah, I guess that means we're officially siblings." "Yeah, I guess we are." The two share a laugh, and a week passes, and they attend kindergarten, and it was nice, for the two had learned the basics. The snack times, and the other students were really nice to both of them, except for a certain group of three: a spiky-headed boy, another boy with red wings, and another boy with stretchy fingers. All three of them given them the stink eye. For a while, they would leave them alone. But one day, outside during recess, the teachers were discussing something while their heads were turned the other way. The three squad had their heads turned to the newbies. Tomura and his crew approached Koe-san and Tomura while they were playing on the teeter-totter. "Hey, You too. Koi-san stops and she politely introduces herself. Hi, I'm Koi-san, and this is Tomura. Yeah, shut up. I already know your dumb names. I just wanted to come over here and talk to you two. Tenko, with a bit anger flowing throughout him, says, "Hey, can you guys just leave us alone? We were playing." Bakugo then points at him, and the red wing one goes over and pushes him down to the ground. The spiky-headed blonde said, "Shut up, you eye-sunken freak. I'm talking." He tries to get back up, only for the red wing boy to keep him down. He turns his attention to Koya-san. As I was saying, my name is Katsuki Bakugo, and I have the best quirk that is around in this class. And I don't mean to put this in a rude way, but I'm basically one of those kind of people that prefers to be feared than loved. He leans in closer to Koe-san, his face inches away from hers. She's a bit on the edge of her seat, unsure of what's about to happen next. He says, "Do you want to know what my quirk is?" Koe-san says in a weak voice, "What is your quirk?" A grin comes across Katsuki's face, and suddenly a spark of light emanated from his fingertips, and he raises the sparks up to her face and lets out a firecracker explosion, which made her fall to the ground. Her ears were ringing, and she was having unwanted memories coming to her. These moments of abuse that reminded her of her father. She curls up into a ball while trying her best to hold back Hati, who wants to intervene. Hati, "No, but child, they are assaulting you. They need to be taught a lesson." "Hati, please don't." Bakugo squats down next to her and says, "Hati? Who the hell is that?" Koe-san said, "She's my shadow." "You actually name your shadow? My god, you're so weird." Tenko sees this, him making fun of his sister. And this is making him so angry. "Leave her alone," he shouted. But then Bakugo began to pull on her ears. Wow, these are actually dog ears. What kind of a freak are you? She begged for him to stop, but Katsuki continued to mock the poor little Koe-san. "Hey guys, do you want to know what another word for female dog is?" What's another word for female dog? The word is bitch. "Hey, do you like that name, you little bitch?" A tear runs down her face. Tomura sees this, and he gets so angry from this guy making his sister cry that he punches the guy with the wings square in the jaw. He then quickly returns to his feet and ushers towards the other boys, wanting to fight them. But he was being bested by the stretchy-fingered kid. He held his arms behind him as Katsuki laid down a barrage of punches on his stomach. Koe-san sees this, and she gets up, holding back as much strength as she could. She then punches Katsuki in the jaw, causing him to fly back a few feet. She then turns her attention to the stretchy-fingered kid, looking deep into his eyes with her eyes glowing red. And she lets Hati out, her shadow rising from the ground, and turns into a third-dimensional wolf, slowly walking towards the finger kid. Soon, the boy hears what sounds like two voices coming from this shadow wolf being that stood about 14 feet tall or unimaginable height. "Let him go." Out of fear, he lets Tomura go, and he ushers over to Koe-san's side as Hati lets out a growl to the kid. She scared him so much that the kid wet his pants out of fear. The teachers have finally turned their attention back to the kids, and they see the violence that had just happened, and one of them yelled to Koe-san to stop. Hati returned to her body. Tomura says, "Hey, don't yell at her, they attacked us first." "I don't want to hear any excuses from both of you." "To the principal's office, now," one of the teachers said with fury. With tears running down her eyes, she runs off and Tomura follows her. Wait up, Koe-san!" We transition to the waiting room of the hall. We then transition to the hallway. Koe-san and Tomura were sitting next to each other, both of them with sad looks on their faces. Both of them already telling the principal what happened, and they were outside waiting for their parent to show up. Shigaraki, all for one. Koe-san cries because she's afraid that Papa Shigaraki was going to yell at them for getting into a fight not even a week into this school. Tomura hugs her, telling her that it's going to be alright, and that it's not their fault. Soon, All for One does show up and talks to the principal, while the kids stayed outside. From inside the principal's office, they were discussing what had happened. The principal is making it sound like Tomura and Koe-san had started the outburst, but All for One wasn't having any of it. He could tell that the principal was lying, asking him if he could see the cameras of the playground when it had happened. The principal denies this request. "Why?" asked All for One. "Because the footage mysteriously was erased." This angered All for One, and he stands up, slamming his fist into the principal's desk while yelling, "Are you out of your goddamn mind? If you think for a second that I'm going to believe your bullshit of a story that my children started a fight with 3 other kids that are twice their size, and now you're telling me that the footage of the playground just mysteriously disappeared just like that? You know what I'm thinking right now? And what would that be, sir? I think that you purposely deleted that footage just to cover up for one of the children that assaulted my kids. I don't know what else to tell you, sir. Your kids are they're just bad kids." All for One was getting frustrated and was about to do something bad, but then he held back and said, I will be taking this to the news." "Well, it will be my word against yours," said the principal. "Yeah. And when I tell them that the footage just mysteriously ended up getting deleted, we'll see. Have a nice day." He stomps off out of the principal's office, and he picks up Tomura and Koe-san and carrying them to the car. During the drive home, nobody said anything until they made it back. All for One looked to the kids and said, "Listen, kids, I'm not mad at you at all, if that's what you're thinking. If anything, I'm proud of you for protecting one another. But it's just the school board has such messed up agendas that those who have powerful quirks get away with eventually anything." "Koe-san, what quirk did that boy have, the one that hassled you?" "Well, from what it looked like, he had a sort of firecracker explosion quirk. He put it up next to my face and I saw it close hand." All for One frustratingly questioned, saying in a questionable tone, "He let off an explosion near your face?" "Ooh, I'm so mad. I'm sorry, kids. Look, I'm going to admit you into another school, but just to make sure, I'm going to have to train the both of you, so that the next time someone challenges you, you can take them down. Do you two think that you're up for it? Both Tomura and Koe-san look at each other and nod in agreement, saying yes. And for the past few months, the two would attend a different school, and they would train each other, with Koe-san practicing her methods of molding shadows into weapons using shadow play. Tomura would learn to use his quirk to his advantage to decay things and blow the dust of that decayed object into his opponent's face, blinding them for a few seconds, giving him great advantage. All for One approaches the two children and told them that they're doing great and that it's time that they move on up. It's time to practice self-defense. He takes them to a room that almost resembles a gymnasium. And just at the end of it, there were two mannequins that are about the same size as the children. They approach the mannequins, and All for One says, in this session, I want each of you to take down one of these mannequins with your fighting skills. Now, Tomura, I understand that you tend to have a temper problem when in heated situations, but you need to control yourself, okay? Tomura bows and says, yes, master. And Koe-san, do you notice anything about this room? Koe-san looks around and she sees that this room is indeed covered from head to toe in lights, and she says, there's no shadows. That's correct. Now, there may be a time in your life where Hati may not be there to protect you, which is why you need to practice on fighting more. Keep yourself safe. Okay, she says in a nervous voice. It'll be fine, kids. Just stay on your toes. Tomura, you go first. Yes, master. He takes Koe-san aside and he activates the dummies. And one dummy lunges at him and he successfully takes it down. Excellent work, Tomura. Now, Koe-san, it's your turn. She tightly clenches Overhaul's pants, really nervous about having to go up. And All for One comforts her, telling her that it's going to be fine, and that these dummies won't actually hurt her. They will just restrain her, get the best of her. All she has to do is her best to succeed. She goes up against the dummies, but she fails, and she found herself pinned down. She cries, and All for One and Tomura comforts her. Hey, you're okay. I'm sorry, Papa. It's okay. You're not gonna win every fight you get caught up in. The important thing is that you live to fight another day. We will try again tomorrow, another time. Suddenly, some of the lights just mysteriously power off, and Hati appears before them. Actually, I have a more promising composition that can make Koe-san better at combat. But we are going to have to go to a world I have created. Hati then conjures a portal. It was black and it was outlined with the waves of purple. Let's go, child. Koe-san takes a step towards the portal but then she felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Tomura. Hey, wait, I don't think you should go. Koe-san says, it's okay, Tomura. I'll be back, I promise. Hati says, I'll have her back within 24 hours. You have my word. Okay, just be careful. She walks through the portal with Hati, and soon the two find themselves in an endless abyss, just floating there like as if they're in outer space. Hati, there's nothing here. Because, child, that is because we are going to create it. This realm bends to our will. She demonstrates this by creating a stream of water, ones that you would find in the forest. See, I am able to create this, and you are able to create other things as well. Go ahead, give it a try. Koya-san focuses, and in the distance, mountains form. Hati congratulates her and announces her that they will be training here from now on. Koya-san would ask, and what will be the first thing that we're doing, Hati? I will be hunting you. Koya-san was confused. What do you mean? I mean, for the next 24 hours, I will be hunting you. And you're going to need to find a way to take me down before I take you down. Koya-san starts backing up out of fear. But why would you do that? It's to make you braver, child. She slowly starts approaching the scared child as she backs up in fear. But I thought you were my friend. This is too important, child, and it's for your own good. And by the way, this world's time frame bends to my will, and you and I will be at this for a whole year. Now, I'm going to count down from 10, and by the time that I reach 0, the hunt begins. So, I highly suggest that you start running. Suddenly, the world around them starts changing into an actual forest itself, with trees, rocks, bushes, even cliffs to make things more realistic. 10. Koya-san turns around and she starts running for her life, and when 10 seconds have passed and Hati reaches 0, she then said, "Ready or not, here I come." Koya-san runs for a while and she stops to catch her breath, and she thinks of what to do next, but she was unsure of what to do next. What felt like months had passed, and she hid as Hati approaches. All Koya-san had was a sharp spear made of wood, ready for a fight. Hati approaches, and she smells where she is, and she gets ready to pounce, but before she could, Koya-san leaps out from her hiding spot and she tries to stab Hati, but Hati dodges. Hati then lunges at Koya-san, but she dodges also. She would then swing her stick blade at her, leaving a scratch on her facial cheek. Hati then growls, and she tackles Koya-san to the ground and opens her mouth to bring it down onto her, but then she stops and says, "Congratulations, Koya-san. You're dead. Again." Darn it, and I actually almost had you that time. Yes, but I'm faster than you. And when it comes to combat, you need to learn to act as well as think as fast as your opponent. Yeah, I know. But with more time, I'll take you down, and then I can go home. That is the determination I'd like to see, child. Now go. I will give you 20 seconds this time. She nods, and she heads off and runs. A year has passed. Koya-san has gotten much faster and stronger and more agile than before. This time, Koya-san is actually in the hunt for Hati, and she smells the air and senses her. Soon, she finds her. She was hunting for her. She manages to corner her in this cave that had height tactics for her to climb and get the jump on her. She looks down at her from above inside the cave and tightly holds her weapon in hand, and then she leaps down from the top and then lands on top of Hati with her stick wrapping around her neck, trying to put her in a chokehold. Hati would try to shake her off, but her struggle would go on for a few minutes before she was successful in getting Koe-san off of her. The two would fight for a few moments for dominance, but this time Koe-san was victorious when she had Hati pinned to the ground with her spear pointed at her, ready to finish her. Hati, in a way, smiled and said, "Great job, child. You are ready." Suddenly, a portal opens and Koe-san steps through it, and there was All For One and Tomura. They were surprised at how Koe-san looked. She used to be this person that wanted to be small and non-noticeable, but now she's bigger and slightly muscular. Tomura asks if she's okay, and she would reply, "Yeah, Tomura, I'm good. I've got a lot of training in, and I can't wait to show you. Here, let's go to the dummies." "Are you sure?" asked All For One. "Yeah, I'm sure. Come on. I want to show you." Okay, then. He then activates the dummies, and within a few seconds, she takes the dummy down with ease. All For One is impressed. It was only 24 hours ago that she was a nervous wreck and frail-spirited. But now, she's so much more. "Wow, Koe-san, you've gotten so much stronger now." "Thanks, Tomura." All For One then asked, "But how is it that you've aged up in such a short amount of time?" "Oh, it's because when I entered the abyss, me and Hati have control over time and space when in there." All For One, with a concerned look on his face, says, "Koe-san, it's amazing that you have these abilities. But from now on, when you're in that world, I don't want you spending years in there. I'd hate for your childhood to just drift away so suddenly." "Oh, okay, Papa." All For One says, "Anyway, why don't we go out and celebrate your return?" Koe-san jumps for joy while saying, "Okay!" Soon we cut to All For One, Tomura, and Koe-san walking through the park in the evening sunlight, having a good time, until Koe-san looks over and saw a man with flame emanating throughout all his body. He was very muscular with red hair. He was with a little girl around her age with half red and half white hair. But the thing that stood out most about this girl was the scar that laid on the left side of her face. She was really sad, but this man she assumes is her father is not doing anything to comfort her. He's just yelling at her. All it did was made her cry. And it was at this moment an unwanted memory ensues when her father abused her physically and emotionally. And with that, something inside Koe-san took over her, and she wandered over to the two. She started walking towards the two with a blank look in her eye. She appears behind the flaming man while yelling at his daughter until he felt this cold presence behind him. He slowly turns around and sees a small child with hair covering her eyes. What do you want, child?" asked the flaming man. For a few seconds, she doesn't say anything. She just stands there. All For One, Tomura are watching. The eerie silence was over when Koe-san said, "You should really learn to be more kind to your daughter. You just might come to regret it." Endeavor grunts and says, "I don't know who you think you are to tell me how to raise my kid, but you need to get the hell away from me. You are creeping me the hell out." Suddenly, a weird rumbly noise can be heard. The flaming man looked over at Koe-san's shadow that started to extend out even though the sun was staying in its place. His heart started racing with fear, and he looks back to Koe-san, and she extends her hand out and opens a portal to the abyss right underneath the flaming man, and he falls through. Koe-san then closes it and helps the half-red, half-white-headed girl up. She asks, "What did you do to him?" "I grounded him. He'll only come out if he apologizes for his outrageous behavior." "Are you okay?" Yeah, I'm fine." All for One approaches them and says, "It's time to go home, Koe-san." Koe-san looks to the girl and asks, "Can she come with us?" All for One looks to the half-red, half-white-headed girl and says, "Do you have any family members or relatives?" She looks to the ground with sadness and says, "I don't know." "Okay, fine, you can come with us, but we must leave now. People are starting to stare." Koe-san then looks to the girl and grabs her by the hand and says, "Hey, let's leave." They leave, and soon they make it back to the house of All for One. And he would ask her what her quirk is, and she would go on to explain that her quirk is half flame, half cold. Conjuration. Koe-san says, "Wow, that's really amazing." "Yes, very nice," said All for One. Koe-san, where did you send Endeavor?" "Oh, you mean the red man? Oh, well, I put him in the abyss. He was being very bad and needed to be put away." "Interesting. And I remember you saying that you can manipulate time and space when someone is in there?" "Yeah, right now, time is moving at the same pace as it is out here. So for him, it's only been about 20 minutes, I think." "Interesting. And Todoroki, I can tell that your father wasn't very kind to you. Do you care if anything happens to him?" Todoroki gets an angry look on her face, and the memories of the day her mother put that scar on the left side of her eye still scars her. All that happened because father drew her mad. She would go on to explain that she could care less of what happens to him. Heck, she never even wants to see him again. A smile comes across All for One's face, and he tells Koe-san to accelerate the time in the abyss until he is an elderly man. She does this, and she hears Endeavor's voice. He screams because it felt like 40 years had passed, making him 85 years old. He begs and pleads to be let out. And Koe-san tells him this, and All for One asks if he could talk with him, and opens a portal. Koe-san agrees and slows down the time, matching the reality. He then enters the abyss and confronts the elderly Endeavor, telling him that he could leave if he shakes his hand and gives him his quirk. Without even a second thought, the elderly Endeavor then shook the man's hand, exchanging his quirk for his freedom. "There, I gave you my quirk. Can I please leave?" All for One slowly looks at the withering old man and says, "You know what? Now that I think about it, your daughter, Shoto Todoroki, she had told me about all the bad things that you have done to her and her mother, how you were very abusive towards her, that you tried to take her childhood away from her. But I was just..." "Don't interrupt me. With a man with such sins, I say that her and her mother deserve some justice." All for One then turns around and Koe-san opens a portal. Endeavor says, "Wait! Don't leave me here, please!" He tries to run towards the exit, but it closed before his before even his hand could reach the exit. All for One kneels down to Shoto's level and says, "It's okay, Shoto. He won't hurt you anymore." Soon, all three of the kids would talk amongst each other, but Shoto was a bit socially awkward. Reasons is because she never had any interactions with any other kids her age, so she was mostly quiet the entire time. But they managed to hold their conversations. They talk about things that they like Shoto didn't know. They talk about their favorite gaming activity Shoto didn't know. And they talk about their favorite foods, to which again, Shoto did not know. On that day, Shoto would live with All for One, Koe-san, and Tomura, and they would grow a bond to each other. A few more days would pass, and All for One called the kids to talk with him for a moment. "Listen, kids, I have a very important job for you when you are older in the future." "Oh, well, what is it, Papa?" said Koe-san. We then cut away, and the three were in the middle of training. Of course, Todoroki did not have to join in if she didn't want to, but because Tomura and Koe-san made it look fun, she decided to join in. While in the middle of training, Koe-san stopped and asked, "Hey, guys, what's a bounty hunter and what do they do?" Tomura says, "Oh, well, they hunt down people and they bring them in." "Oh, hey, Shoto, do you think we can be pretty good bounty hunters?" "Well, I think so. With more time and training, we should be able to pull it off." "I guess so. I just really don't want to let Papa All for One down." Hati then appeared from Koe-san's body and tells her that it'll be fine and that they have years to prepare before their first mission. This is the first time Shoto's actually seeing Hati for the first time, and she's a bit spooked by her. But Koe-san assures her that if you're nice to her and me, she'll be nice to you too. "Oh, wow, she looks really nice. Can I pet her?" She slowly reaches her hand out towards Hati, but Hati, with a blank stare in her eyes, says no. She then pulls her hand back, saying, "Okay." Suddenly, the doors open quickly, and a man who was babysitting the kids runs in, and his head resembled somewhat of a purple flame, and his eyes with a yellow light. "Kids, we have an emergency, and we need to leave now." "Why? What's wrong, Korigiri?" said Tomura. "It's All for One. He's been badly injured." They stopped what they were doing, and they ushered out the door. They then get in the car, and they drive for a while. Koe-san has tears running down her face when she feels Tomura's hand on her shoulder comforting her, telling her that it's going to be okay. She then felt Shoto grabbing her hand and comforting her as well, and after driving for a while, they arrive at a hidden hideout in the desert, and pillars of rocks rose from the ground, revealing a secret hatch. They enter an underground bunker, and inside was stacks of exclusive cars, food, weapons. It had livable corridors. There were also scientists conducting experiments and an operating room where All for One was. The doctors were operating on him to save his life. The kids watch as the doctors try to save their father figure. Koe-san cries into Tomura's chest as he caresses her hair as he watches the doctors continuously try to save their father figure. Soon, the kids were taken to a room and waited for updates on All for One's condition. When Korigiri came and got them to have a quick talk with All for One. All for One has multiple medical machines attached to his body to help him stay alive, such as a heart monitor, an IV, a breathing apparatus, you name it. The kids approach slowly, and Koe-san nearly falls to her knees as they felt weak. But she was pampered by Shoto and Tomura. Soon, they make it to the bedside of All for One. He was breathing very slowly and loudly, and with each exhale, the heart monitor would beep with his breathing pattern. Korigiri says, "Master, the kids are here." For a few seconds, he did not say anything. He would just hear breathing as if that's all he could focus on. But then, he spoke in a very raspy voice that made him sound like an elderly man who was on his deathbed. "Kids, it's okay." Koe-san approaches closer and was too scared to physically comfort him. Instead, she asked her father figure if he was alright, and in response, she got silence for a few seconds, and then he said, "It's alright. I'll be fine. I just need time. I should be able to. He couldn't get the words out, so he said, "Listen, it'll be okay. I just need rest." He slowly places a hand on top of Koe-san's head and said, "Just give me some time. I need you to be strong for me, okay?" Koe-san stops and thinks for a second and says, "Wait. Time? Time. Time!" She then calls out Hati and asks her if they could control time in the abyss, then does that mean that they can reverse time to help Papa Tomura? "We can, child. That's some good thinking. But there is a catch, though." "Well, what is it?" "When those years that you have subtracted from him, as time proceeds, at the same time amount of years that had passed, his wounds and injuries will come back to him." "But if I reverse time again, would it prevent that?" "Yes, but you'll need to keep doing it for as long as you can." "I can. Can we help Papa Tomura now?" "Okay, but remember, this is your responsibility. You are to take care of him." "Thank you, Hadi. Thank you. Papa, I can help you. Just hold still." Koe-san then opens a portal around All for One, and she sends him to the abyss. And slowly, she starts reversing time on All for One to a time where he was more healthier and active. Not too far where he's a teenager. That would just be too much. After she thinks that she's gone far enough, she then opens a way out of the abyss and prays for All for One to walk out. They all wait, and then they hear footsteps coming from the portal, and they see his silhouette. Their mouths open in surprise. All for One enters 14 years younger. He smiles and says, "You did it, Koe-san. You saved me." Tears start flooding the kids' eyes as they run towards All for One and they hug him, happy that he's okay. Soon, All for One takes the kids to a private room. He would thank the young Koe-san for restoring him, and she would go on to explain to All for One that she took 14 years off of his age, so that when 14 years pass, his body will go through all the things that had happened to him in those 14 years. All for One takes this to mind, and he explains that he's going to live here underground for a while and stay out of sight of the people of Japan for quite a while. But he doesn't want to hold the kids back, so He's instructed them to leave this place as well and to live their lives. The kids object to this, saying that they want to stay with him, but All For One insists that they go. He promises that they could visit him once a week, and promises to uphold that promise. Kurogiri is tasked to watch over them, and before they leave, all the kids give All For One last hug before they leave. And he expresses how much he appreciates all of them. Koya-san tears up. She doesn't want to let go, and it had to take Tomura and Shoto to separate them. It was a quiet drive on the rest of the way home, back to the city, and soon they get back to the house. Koya-san wanted to go to bed and sleep, but Kurogiri called them over to talk with them in the living room. Listen, kids, I know you're sad that All For One isn't going to be here with you, but you have to focus on yourselves. Keep moving forward with your lives. He would want that. He would want you to grow strong and be smarter if you're going to uphold what he wants you to become when you're older. Koya-san, Tomura, Jaigoku, that's Shoto's name. Can you promise to yourselves that you will be stronger in the future, stronger for each other? The three kids then looked at each other and they nod as they said, yes. We then skip 13 years. Koya-san, Tomura, and Jaigoku are walking down the street. About to go on 18, Tomura wears all black outfit, wearing a long leathery trench coat. Only this time, he doesn't have the hands of his deceased family member. 17, about to go 18, Jaigoku, otherwise known as Shoto Todoroki, was wearing an all-black jumpsuit with a yellow stripe going down just the center of it, wearing matching shoes. And technically already 18, if you consider the one-year jump she did. Koya-san, formerly known as Izuki Midoriya, was wearing all black booty shorts, while wearing black shirt that was partially cut off from the top, showing off a lot of her flesh, including her stomach and her thighs. She wore leather gloves with metal spikes just at the end of each knuckle. When they turned the corner, they stopped and looked up and smiled, and Koya-san said, "Alright guys, you ready for this?" Tomura says, "You know me. I'm always ready." Shoto says, "Let's give him hell." I meant Jaigoku. Sorry. Sometimes I will slip up and I will say her actual name, but it's Jaigoku. That's what Shoto's name is. They start to walk towards this tower of some sorts, this skyscraper that had about what appeared to be 50 to 60 floors. It was mostly covered by glass, and the sunlight reflected its shine, kind of like a very large beacon. There was an antennae on the top of it that had flashes of red and green lights. And just on the top of the floor stood a man with orange-brown hair. He wore a suit, and his nose was cartoonishly long. He looked out at the city and monologues how he plans to shape the city itself, and soon, eventually, the entire world. Suddenly, he gets a call on his desk phone. He answers it. It was his secretary informing him of 3 people, a man and 2 women, who wanted to speak to him about something. He asked their names, and it was an eerie silence for a moment, but the silence was broken when the secretary said they'd rather introduce themselves to you in person. Rikiya Yatsubashi felt suspicious of those words, as well as unease. He then told his secretary not to allow them up and to have them removed from the building immediately. He was expecting a response back, but after a few seconds, he said, "Hello?" back into the phone, And then the silence was cut off when a frightened scream was heard. "Hello? Miyatsura? Are you there?" Suddenly, he hears a raspy voice. "We're sorry. Miss Yatsiba is away at the moment. We're on our way up." His heart started racing, and he drops the phone, but then he starts calming himself down, assuring himself that even if they do get up here, he can easily take them on. I mean, how powerful could they possibly be? Not to mention, there's about 20 security guards on each floor. So, it's them against basically 200 men, maybe even beyond that. It wasn't before 10 seconds after monologuing to himself that everything's alright that his heart skipped a beat when he heard a knock at the door. He then quickly regains his composure and sits down at his desk, saying, "Come in." The door slowly opens with a loud creak, and two unfamiliar people enter, a man and a woman. A girl with long black hair, and a man with light blue hair. Wait, those aren't the same people that Miyashita told me about, are they? There's only two of them, and she said there were three. He calmly says, "Can I help you two with something?" They do not say anything. They approached the desk and took a seat. Yatsubashi was confused. Why aren't they saying anything? Suddenly, he heard a womanly voice from behind him. "You'll have to excuse them. They said I can do the talking." He joltingly turns around and he sees a girl with what appears to be dog-like ears on the top of her head. She had very nice curvature, and with her attractive body as she walked around to the front of the desk, his sight went from her ears down to her thighs. Tomura said, "Hey, don't look at her like that." Koi-san said, "Hey, it's okay, he can look. He just can't touch, though. At least, not yet." She then kicks her feet onto the desk, and she says, "So, you're Rikia Yatsubashi, huh? We've heard a lot about you. You know, I gotta say, I'm somewhat of a fan. You say that quirks should be more celebrated instead of compressed. I mean, after all, quirks are a more true manifestation of who we really are." A smile comes across his face, but then it goes away when she said, "But that's not why we're here for. You see, your business is currently fundamentally imposing of someone we find near and dear to us, and we intend to help him in any way that we can. So, we have a proposal for you." "Really? Well, what is that?" Koi-san smiles and says, "We want you and your entire company to be officially associated with him. Step down as CEO and let him take the wheel." Yatsubashi angrily stands up. He plants his fist into the desk that he breaks a hole into it. He goes on a rant about how crazy they are to even barge into his office and dare infiltrate his building. He even threatens them that if they don't leave right now, that he's going to do something drastic. His heart started skipping a beat when he sees that his threats didn't even faze them, but instead, they just smile at him, their eyes filled with determination. Koi-san says, "I see. So, you're choosing to do this the hard way. So be it. Hati, would you kindly?" Suddenly, the whole room was shrouded in darkness, and even blocked out the windows, sending them to the abyss. Yatsubashi looks around, wondering, where is he, and what the hell is this? He then looks at the three, and their eyes were glowing red. Koi-san said, "I wouldn't do that if I were you. You see, people tend to overreact when they find themselves in the dark. But really, there's nothing to worry about. Now, before you do anything, something drastic, something you might regret, I just wanted to remind you of all the other heroes and certain people that have gone missing. I take it you heard the rumors of, what do they call us? It had something to do with the word phantom. Yatsubashi says the Phantom Menaces. That's right. And the only reason why they call us that is because, we can be there and not be there at the same time. So, you know who we are, don't you? Yes. And you know what we do? Yes. And one last question. She then stands up from her desk and leans over across Yatsubashi's desk with her face inches closest to his face. Are you going to fight back? Suddenly, what looked like dark matter started covering Yatsubashi's face, and it started manifesting across his arm. It expanded out, and he said, "Yes," as he swings his fist downwards, destroying his desk. Koe-san and the rest of the gang managed to dodge out the way. Koe-san looks at Jai Goku and says, "Hey, Jai, do you mind cooling him down a bit?" Jai Goku then extended her right hand out and shrouded the man in a thick layer of ice that was impossible to break. Even with his ability to use his stress as his strength to break out of it, he was unable to. He stops in his tracks, and they approach him, and Koe-san told Tomura to decay him a little bit. Tomura then approached Yatsubashi and decays one of his legs. He screams in agony, and the ice around him starts cracking as if he was going to break free from it. But then he felt excruciating pain in his right hand. He looks and sees that Jai Goku has stabbed him with an ice dagger. "Don't even think about it," said Jai Goku. Koe-san then gets closer and says, "Hang on, guys. I think he's had enough. Let's try talking to him again. Maybe he's willing to be more cooperative this time." Yatsubashi's heart started racing when he saw that this predator started approaching him with not a care in the world, not even a slight fear. It was like this thing wasn't even human. It was almost like it was God. "Look down at your hand," said Koe-san. He looks down and he sees that his hand has been healed, although his leg was still gone. What is this?" Koe-san explains that she reversed time on him, and now he's healed, at least until the time moves forward again, to which the wound will come back. But she does go on to tell him that they can do a lot worse than simply stabbing him and taking one of his legs. She kind of wonders, what would happen if they cut his head off and rewind the time over and over again? Would he live? Would he continue to feel the pain? It really intrigues them to find that out. But, unfortunately, All For One needs you alive. So, we're just gonna take you to him, okay? Wait, All For One? I thought he was dead. Oh no, he's very much alive. He's just more underground, if you catch my drift. Wait, you didn't tell me you worked for him. You didn't ask. Okay. I'll do anything. I'll step down as CEO. Just please stop. Stop this torture. Let me out of this dark chamber. She stares deep into his eyes and says, "Okay, we will stop this, and we will take you to him so that you and him could have a friendly chat." What? No, please, I don't want to stay in here. You should have thought about that before you attacked us. Maybe next time, think more clearly before you take action. As they get ready to leave the abyss, they step through the portal, and Yatsubashi yells no, and his voice echoes through as they close the portal behind them. Koe-san then said, "Well, I think that went pretty good, guys, don't you think?" "Yes, I agree, although he didn't really put up much of a fight, as I thought he would," said Tomura. Jai Goku says, "Yeah, I was hoping for something more of a challenge." Koe-san says, "Well, don't worry, guys. We'll find a good fight someday. We just have to keep our heads up and keep waiting, and most importantly, continue with our training. So, let's leave." They leave, and soon they arrive at the underground bunker, and All For One is reading newspaper articles over the disappearance of 7 heroes, such as Endeavor, Kamure Woods, one of the Wild Wild Pussycats, Pixie Bob, Crimson Riot, Godzilla, and Rukuro Namora, aka Number 6. 7 heroes gone missing in the past few years. Where have they gone to? I'll tell you. The 3 then enter the room where All For One was. He welcomes them. Koe-san ushers over to him, hugging him, saying, "Hey, Daddy." "So, Koe-san, how was the meeting?" "It went pretty smoothly. Oh, and right, I guess it's better that I let the security guard and the nice secretary lady out." With a snap of her fingers, she drops all the security guards and the secretary back in the spots that they were before they disappeared. They were a bit stunned about the endeavors that they had to go through, but they were alive. "Anyway, we got him. He's just right over there." She opens a portal to the abyss, and Yatsubashi falls through. He was bloody and bruised, as well as missing a leg. He was shaken up, and his mind was still boggled until he saw All For One. It's you." He chuckles and says, "Yeah, it's me. So, I take it that my partners here have told you what I want?" Yes, you want my company, it's yours. I just simply ask that you let me go. I swear that no one will know you're still alive." All For One approaches the man who is withering and said, "I want one more thing." He then extends his hand out, and he touches Yatsubashi, and he takes his quirk from him. He screams, "No!" and he falls to the ground, and he feels free of stress. He's never felt this relief before. It was like getting rid of a bad headache that you've been dealing with since birth. I feel so..." His words were interrupted when he felt a weird sensation from the back of his head. He looks and sees Koe-san, her eyes glowing the color red, as she smiled and said, "You're mine now." What are you? Suddenly, he felt something ushered down from the top of his head and covered his entire body in a shroud of shadows. Koe-san backs up and said, "Rise, the shadow of Yatsubashi." He stands up, and she opens a portal to the abyss and orders him to step through it. And inside was the bodies of the missing heroes who had suffered the same fate. All but Godzilla, who still kept his quirks in case of emergencies. Koe-san says, "Well, that went pretty well." All For One says, "Yes, you all have done a really good job. So, how have you all been?" Tomura sits down and says, "We are doing fine, but the heroes are expanding, getting bigger every day. Some of them, I'm telling you, some of them are just in it for attention and money and fame. Simply waving at the camera and smiling just goes to show you how corrupted this government is, along with the rest of society. I can't wait to rise up and to diminish their precious symbol of peace." Koe-san steps in, saying, "Yes, And people nowadays are really relying on the heroes too much. Society and its people have gone soft and weak. People nowadays need to learn to save themselves. Shoto steps in and says, and I have been seeing a lot of cases of child abuse, and I want to raise awareness of that. All for One says, and I assure you that when the time is right, all of your dreams will be a reality. You have all come a long way, and I will see to it myself that your dreams come true. They all thank him, saying, "Thank you, Master." So, they chatted up for a little while, and All for One comments about how he's not very fond of Koi-san's outfit, and how she's revealing a little too much skin. And she goes on to tell him that this outfit makes her more agile and flexible, and easier to fight in. Plus, it tends to get really hot sometimes whenever they fight an opponent. But in the end, he lets it go. The three then headed back home. Koi-san flops down on the couch saying, "So guys, who's gonna cook tonight?" Tomura says, "Well, I already cooked the other night, so it's Shoto's turn." She sighs out of frustration and says, "I don't want to cook tonight." Koi-san says, "Oh please, Jaigoku, you make the best soba in the world." She does this while doing the puppy dog eyes. And Jaigoku submits. Soon, it's just Tomura and Koi-san. They would talk for a little bit about the past and the challenges they had to endure, but they also had fun doing it. Oh yeah, and do you remember that time when I was almost late for school because we had to go capture Godzilla? Tomura says, "Yeah, you were worried about forgetting all the answers to the test that when we finish, you read your textbook and you couldn't put it down until we showed up at school." They laugh, and Tomura stares at Koi-san while she was laughing. He enjoyed seeing her smile. Something about her made his heart skip a beat. He had feelings for her, but he didn't know how to express those feelings. So he decided to hold it until the time was right. Koi-san says, "Oh, and graduation is coming soon. Hey, are you going to go to UA University with us?" "Oh, well, I don't really see no point of going, but you did tell me you wanted to be a child psychologist, yes?" "Yeah, I do. I want to help children who are victims of abuse in all manner. Going through that kind of stuff, especially at such a young age, it will impact your future. And I want to help as many kids as I possibly can and save them." Tomura was moved by Koi-san's kind words. He goes in wanting to say something that was on his mind for a while, but his nervousness got the best of him, and stuttering left his lips. But he was saved when Jaigoku mentioned that dinner was ready. And afterwards, Koi-san was left alone in her bedroom in her black and white pajamas, staring at the mirror, reflecting on her life. And for the longest time, she felt like something was missing in her life, but she doesn't know what it is. Is it purpose? Is it self-identity? She wasn't quite sure. And it made her sad, but she always managed to hide it from her teammates. Most of the time, when she was alone, she would cry because something about her life just never made sense, but she never questioned it until now. She opens a portal to the abyss and she enters for privacy. "Hati?" "Yes, child." She then appears in front of Koi-san in her own form. "Is there more to me than who I am?" I mean, I get that my mom tried to kill me, and my dad hurt me when I was small, but that's all that you've ever told me. Why do I feel like there's more to it than that? Why do I keep having these strange dreams of running across a forest and I feel pain in my leg? Why do I have this strange marking on my leg? Why do I feel out of place? Hati sighs. Okay, child. I will tell you everything. And so, she does. She would go on to tell her about how she's involved in a quarrel with the moon goddess Mani, and that she sent Hati to Earth to show her that this world is no longer ruled by gods. At least, no gods that mattered. But one day, Inko, your former mother, encountered a small wolf cub that had its back legs trapped in a toothless spring trap. And the orb that Mani put me in, she said whoever comes in contact with this orb shall be infused with any creature that it comes in contact with. And therefore, this small wolf cub and this woman touched it at the same time. And they became one. A majority of me is inside you, while a fragment of myself resides within Inko, which explains why I'm missing my left ear. Mani found out that I stole her powers, and she tried to get it back by killing you. She used your mother to finish you, but she was strong enough to resist it, but it led to her to an insane asylum. And I think there's a small chance Mani might have did something to the father figure you had before, well, all for one. Koe-san was baffled of this new information. It takes her a few minutes to process this, and she says, I'm a hybrid between a wolf, a human, and a god? Yes. And I am sorry you got caught up in my machinations, though it was never my intention to make you part of this. I feel like it was fate that brought us together. I need you way more than you need me. In some ways, you remind me of my brother, Skull. He's determined, courageous, wise, headstrong, and he's always looking to get the job done. Please, please don't lose faith in me. But more importantly, don't lose faith in yourself. Koe-san is quiet, but then she turns to Hati, takes a deep breath, and says, I forgive you. Hati smiles. Come on, we need to get some sleep for graduation. They leave the abyss, and graduation day comes. Koe-san, Shoto, and Tomura had gotten their diplomas, their high school diplomas. All for One was there, but he had to wear a disguise so that he would not be recognized. After the class photo and stuff were done, All for One met them outside and congratulated them, and wanted to celebrate it by taking them somewhere fun. But Koe-san had other plans. You see, she really wanted to get into UA University, and actually has an interview with Principal Nezu to discuss future business. And she had to submit her scholarship, but she told them that she will meet up with them back at the house when she can to celebrate. They say there, see you later, and Koe-san runs off. Now, she knows the way through the city, and she decides to take a shortcut through a tunnel when suddenly she heard rumbly noises behind her. She looked and saw a sewer lid starting to shake when suddenly a person made entirely out of green slime emerged from it, wanting to take Koe-san's body. She stands there with one hand on her waist and tilting her hips. The sludge man says, "Hello there, beautiful lady. Hey, I'm going to need your body. You see, there's a hero after me. So, why don't you let me use it? Including other purposes." Koe-san stares at him with an annoying look on her face and says, "Excuse me? You will not be doing anything with this fabulous body of mine." Through his slimy mouth, he smiles and says, "That's fine." He then lunges at her. "I'll take it by force then." Koe-san smiles, and the sludge villain reaches her, but when he got to her, he phased through her. He turns around, and there she stood, covered from head to toe in her shadowy armor. It was like she was wearing a tight suit, showing off her curvature, and I mean all her curvature, if you know what I'm saying. "What the hell?" said the sludge man. She then turns around and reveals her head, saying, "I don't think so." She then reached out to the side and grabbed a hold of the shadows around her and formed a weapon, molding 2 elongated staffs. And she would start relentlessly attacking the sludge villain. She would aim for spots that looked vulnerable to him, such as his teeth and his eyes, causing great pain to her opponent. After a minute of beating this man down, the sludge man tries to escape, but Koe-san manipulates the shadows around them to block off the man's path, and he found himself cornered. He looks back at Koe-san and sees her eyes glowing red with a devilish smile on her face. "Look, I'm sorry. Please just let me go." Koe-san lets out a devilish laugh and says, "No, I don't think so. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I'll leave you alone. Enjoy the silence." She then raises a hand up and splits her fingers open, signaling for a portal to the abyss to open. The man was then engulfed by the darkness as he falls through into the abyss, and Koe-san is finally alone. Well, at least that was fun, but now I gotta get to the interview. She gets ready to leave when suddenly, "Have no fear, for I am here," can be heard from the manhole cover, and there stood All Might, the #1 hero, with his iconic smile. Now there is a certain thing that All For One did to All Might before he was taken down. He did use Endeavor's fire quirk to horrendously burn All Might. Here's the details. Only half of his face was burned with a partially healed burning scar. And with that, he lost half of his vision when his right eye met the roaring fire of that day with his battle with All For One. But even with all the time that has passed and his face disfigured, he never let that stop him from being a great hero. He looks around and he sees Koe-san. Her blood starts to boil with anger from the sight of All Might. She remembers the tales when he attacked and almost killed her father figure, All For One. She knows that All Might saves people, but she hates him for 2 reasons. The first one was because of All For One, the man that actually showed her kindness, and he nearly killed him. Who is he to say who's good and who's bad because of their ideology? And 2, he's the reason why society has gotten softer over the years. People are always relying on heroes to come and save them when they need to learn to save themselves. If heroes could just disappear for one day, society would grow strong again. But she keeps her cool and she listens to All Mights. But boy, was it hard. "Excuse me, young lady. Have you seen a man made of sludge around here? He robbed a store of its money, and I must bring him in." Koe-san takes a deep breath and points in a random direction, while saying, "He went that way." All Might could tell that there wasn't something right. He asked her if anything was wrong. Koe-san speaks in an annoyed voice, turning her gaze away from All Might, trying to keep her cool. "It's nothing. Now leave me alone." "Ma'am, I can help you with whatever your problem is. You just have to tell me something. I can catch that villain later, but a person's well-being is important." Koe-san is overflowing with anger. She's trying to leave, but All Might just won't stop. Her instincts kicked in like a cornered animal, and she starts attacking All Might, punching. First, she punches him in the stomach while yelling, "Leave me alone!" All Might falls to the ground, holding onto his stomach, where he was horribly scarred. And then he begins to cough up blood. Koe-san wasn't satisfied with that punch. She continued to lay down a barrage of punches on All Might on his stomach and his face, relentlessly punching him over and over again. His face started turning red, blue, and purple from the blunt hits. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Like, full-time, are you saying that Koe-san is strong enough to take on All Might? Well, in some ways, yes, but considering the fact that All Might is in too much pain to fight back, he's really left himself open when Koe-san punched him in the spot where he lost where he's horribly scarred. Koe-san had no intention of stopping, until Hati then got in between her and All Might. "No! Let me at him! Child, you need to calm down." She takes in a deep breath, and she finally regains her composure, and is bewildered of her actions. All Might was on the ground with a majority of his blood staining the ground, her clothes, and his clothes. Koe-san couldn't contemplate at all. All she could do was just stare and think, "Oh man, this is gonna ruin my chances of getting into UA University. And, oh no, Daddy. Oh man, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?" She starts pacing back and forward, tears fill her eyes. And this is one of Koe-san's strongest cinematic flaws. She is very much a snowflake. Whenever she feels like she's done something wrong, she always goes into this state where the whole world around her just paused and she doesn't know what to do, and she's about to have a panic attack. But Hati is always there to calm her down. And she would take a deep breath and she gets an idea. She opens a portal to the abyss and she rewinds the time on All Might back a few years. She then takes his shirt off to get rid of the evidence. When All Might woke up, he found himself shirtless, but strangely enough, he felt young again, and he can actually breathe normally, and his scar was gone, and he could see out of his right eye, but he couldn't remember what happened. But at Koe-san's residence, she ushers up the stairs, but she was spotted by Tomura and Shoto, who tried to stop her, but she ran to the bathroom, took off her clothes, and got into the shower to rinse off all the blood. As the warm water began to hit her body, she starts to panic again, wondering what is she going to do, what is she going to say. Her thoughts were interrupted when Shoto and Tomura knocked at the door. "Koe-san, are you okay?" She did not respond. She tried to block out the knocks with the sound of the water pressure, and covering her ears. After a few moments, she thought that they were gone. She exited the bathroom and towards her room. She gets most of her clothes on, but she had another meltdown. She falls to the ground onto her knees and starts tearing up and sobbing. She forgot to lock the door, and Tomura and Shoto entered, and the first thing that they saw is Koe-san on the ground crying with her bare back facing them. Tomura looks away and says, "Oh, she's topless. Okay, I'm just gonna look the other way. Shoto, you take care of her and get her dressed." She goes to her and comforts her and asks her what's wrong, but she couldn't respond. All she got was sobbing as an answer. Hati appears from Koe-san's body and explains what happened between her and All Might, which made her cry even more. Shoto then finishes dressing her up, and Tomura was able to come in and comfort her. When she finished her crying, she finally told them what happened, and she explains that she had to rewind time on All Might to hide her tracks. "You think Papa gonna be mad at me?" No, you had to do what you had to do. He wouldn't leave you alone, so you had to do that. And don't worry, it'll be fine. We'll tell him together. But how did your interview go? Asked Shoto. "Oh man, I forgot about that." A few minutes later, they walked down the stairs, and All for One stood there. He then ushers towards Koe-san, asking her if she's okay. "Oh my goodness, you gave me a scare. What's wrong? What happened?" She looks at the ground out of shame, and All for One places a hand on her face, gesturing her to look at him. What happened? Koe-san goes on to explain what happened, repeatedly apologizing for making All Might into his prime. But All for One hugged her, assuring her that it's okay. He goes on to remind her that she can just simply fast forward time on him. And hearing that made Koe-san feel better. He also goes on to tell her that she's very strong if she actually is able to take him down that easily. Koe-san lifts her spirits up and nods her head in agreement. "There's nothing to be ashamed of, Koe-san. You feel better now?" She nods her head. "Yes." "Listen, Koe-san, I know what happened to you as a child was traumatizing, but I swear I will never raise my hand towards you. I vow to protect you. And that's what I'm going to do, whether you're stronger than me or not." Koe-san hugs him, completely relieved of all stress. All for One says, "Hold on a second. Someone tried to take your body?" Inside the abyss, the sludge man is screaming to be let out as he feels like he's been stuck in there for a few hours. A portal opens up near him and he starts running towards it, thinking that it's going to take him out, but before he could reach it, he bumps into All for One's chest. His eyes widen. "Wait, you're him? How could this be?" All for One looks at him with furious anger and says, "Did you try to have your way with my daughter?" The sludge man tries to say something, but he only stuttered, and All for One reaches towards him, taking his quirk and killing him as a man. A few days would pass, and Koe-san was able to reschedule her interview, and it went pretty good, but they did say that she would have to attend an entrance exam in about a few months. She doesn't have to fight or show off her quirk or anything, she just wants to show off her intelligence, and she is very smart. And in those past few months, Koe-san has taken in a new profession. You see, she would kidnap people in the middle of the night and test them to prove their worth of wanting to live. I'll give you a scenario. One night, Koe-san was wearing all black, trying to blend into the shadows to stay hidden. when a man who was walking down the street on his way home from work was about to get mugged by a man who had conjured a blade from his limbs. He was demanding that the man give him everything that he had, but the man cowered on the ground, screaming for help, someone to save him. And when he opened his eyes again, he found himself in a dark, endless void, this being the abyss. From above, he heard a womanly voice saying, "Hello there, sir." What's that? Who are you?" "Me? I'm just somebody who wants society to become strong again, without the need of heroes. I've been watching you, and just a moment ago, you screamed for help and cowered on the ground. Instead of surrendering your values to the thug, your desire to scream for heroes to come and save you. That was pathetic and cowardly. That was the wrong course of action. And so, I want to test your will to live. You see, you are in my world, and your task is to escape this before the beast dwelling within this world catches you and devours you alive." "What?" said the man. "This must be some kind of joke. You better let me out of here right now." "Your timing starts now. Live or die." Suddenly, in the distance, the man sees a light, and it looks like that was the way out. But then, at the same time, he heard the sound of a feral growl. He turns around, and he sees a giant black figure. It had this sort of purple aura outlining it. It was very muscular, and it had an elongated face. It almost looked like a beak from a bird. The man slowly starts backing up out of fear, for this hulking beast started walking towards him. It then lets out a loud, ferocious scream, and the man starts running towards the exit. The beast, not so far behind him. With each second that passed, it felt like an eternity. He's been running. It wasn't until he was a few feet away from the portal he tripped over his own shoelaces, and he falls to the ground. And before he could let out his scream, the hulking beast leaped on top of him and started devouring him. In the real world, Koe-san watches in disappointment. "Game over," said Koe-san. Koe-san takes out a notebook and writes down another victim who could have made it if they weren't so damn clumsy. Soon, Koe-san and Jigoku were at UA, ready for things to get started. Remember, they don't have to show off their quirks because they don't want to be heroes. They're only in this college to get a degree in psychology, so they can pursue their dreams of being child psychologists. While they were making their way inside, Koe-san came across a familiar face, a boy with blonde spiky hair. Koe-san stops before she remembers the scent of nitroglycerin mixed with sweat. The two's eyes meet, and the spiky-haired boy would start approaching the black and green-haired girl. She was confused as to why he's getting closer, but she lets it roll. So, the spiky-headed boy was now just 5 feet away from Koe-san. He's trying to remember her face, but he keeps drawing a blur. Who is this girl? A few seconds later, the boy finally asked her, Hey, have I seen you somewhere before? Koe-san smiles and says, yes, we have met a long time ago. But that's it. That's just it. It was in the past, and I'd rather not dwell on it. Good luck. She then waves goodbye, and the blonde-headed boy is still uncertain of who she is. Eventually, he just leaves it alone. Soon, the two enter the building, and they both do a few IQ tests to see how highly intelligent they are. Their scores are quite high that it almost competes with Einstein's level. This caught the attention of the eraser hero, Aizawa. He wasn't sure what it was, but he saw great potential within these two girls and wanted to see their skills in combat than their IQ. He walks up to them and asks what their quirks are. Koe-san and Jigoku are a bit confused because they're not here to be heroes or to show off their quirks, because there's already enough heroes in the world. They answer the man's question. Koe-san says, well, my quirk is called shadow play. I'm able to take the shadow of any inanimate object or living object and form their shadows into a weapon. It's pretty soft when I touch it, at least when I want it to be, but whenever I let go of it and other people touch it, it's pretty hard to them. And what's your quirk? My quirk is called ice conjuration. That should be pretty self-explanatory. Interesting. I'll tell you what. What I want to see is you two in action. And I want you to show me off your quirks. They both decline that proposal, and Aizawa asks why. And they both say that they want to become psychologists, and that there's enough heroes in the world already. Aizawa gets frustrated and says that if they refuse, then he's not going to submit their applications and they won't get into UA University. Koe-san says, well, that's fine. We'll just go to Shiketsu Center of Learning. Maybe they won't throw away two powerful minds with such great potential. It is at this point she was bluffing, because she knew that Aizawa was bluffing, so she decided to play a bluff with a bluff. But she threw some hard facts at Aizawa, and he's starting to question his own decision. They slowly start walking towards the exit, and when they reach the door, Aizawa stopped them and he apologized for what he said. Look, I just want to see how you two are with your quirks. And if you do this for me, then I'll see to it myself that the smartest man in UA is your teacher, Principal Nezu. Koe-san and Jigoku have heard about Nezu, and that he is well known for having a higher IQ than literally anything, probably on the same level as the internet. The girls look at each other and nod, saying, okay, we'll do it. Soon they arrive at City A with other participants, and Koe-san sees a girl with brown hair. She was so drawn by her because she had really big eyes. Yes, eyes. Koe-san felt her heart aflutter, and actually might have feelings for this girl just by the looks of her. And she starts to walk towards the girl when she felt a hand on her shoulder. Just hang on, Jigoku, I'm going to go talk to that girl over there. She looks, and she sees not Jigoku, but a boy with blue hair and glasses. Excuse me, I don't mean to interfere, but I think that girl is focusing on the task at hand. It would be in our best interest as to not disturb her, okay? Koe-san stares at the girl and then slowly turns her head, looking at the blue-headed boy as her eyes glow, and this blue-headed boy can feel extreme fear just surfing throughout him. He then slowly raises his hand up off of Koe-san's shoulder, and she walks towards the girl. Hi there, said Koe-san. Oh, hi, how are you doing? I'm a little nervous. Like, I really want to get into school, and I fear that I might fail somehow. Said Koe-san. The brunette girl then comforts her, saying, "Hey, it'll be okay. As long as you just give it your all. That's all that should matter." Koe-san smiles, and the brunette girl introduces herself as Ochako Uraraka, and Koe-san was about to introduce herself when suddenly, "Okay, ladies and gentlemen, are you all ready to get things started?" Nobody says anything. "Let's begin!" The door opens, and everyone's waiting for the word to get things started when President Mike says, "There's no countdowns in a real battle, now go, go, go!" And they all start running. Koe-san and Shoto go their separate ways. Koe-san uses her shadow manipulation abilities to create elongated staffs and would start bashing robots with it. She ranked up points until one robot manages to get close enough that she loses her staff and forces her to fight the robot head on. As the robot charges at her again, Koe-san readies herself, and with all her might, she then punches this robot that resembled a tank in what looked like its face. Sparks and metallic things start flying everywhere, and potentially this robot catches on fire. Goku would use her ice freezing abilities to form ice weapons to destroy the robots, or simply just freeze them, and that would actually get her points. This would go on for a while until the zero-pointer emerges and it smashes a building. People start running, but Koe-san and Shoto just stared at it, wondering what are they going to do with this one. When all of a sudden, they heard a cry for help from near the robot's feet and sees Uraraka stuck underneath the rubble. Koe-san runs towards her as she asks Goku to freeze the robot before it runs over her. It stops just in time, but it starts vibrating, trying to get itself free from the ice. Slowly, the ice starts crackling. Koe-san stands next to Uraraka. She reaches out towards Koe-san and says, "Please, can you help me?" Koe-san said, "No. You got yourself into this mess. You can get yourself out." "But I can't. This is too heavy." Koe-san squats down next to Uraraka and says, "Come on, Uraraka. You can do this. You don't have much time before this robot frees itself. You need to remain calm, collected. Now, what is your quirk?" Uraraka stops panicking and she takes a breath. "My quirk is called gravity and..." "Wait." She then uses her gravity quirk to lift the rubble off of her. And just in the nick of time, Koe-san helps her up and she carries her to the side out of the path of the robot before it can run her over. Koe-san and Uraraka watch as this giant robot ushers towards other contestants, but just before it could actually reach them, Koe-san sighed and said, "Hati, go fetch." Suddenly, Koe-san's shadow starts stretching out towards the robots, and it turns from a one-dimensional shadow to a third-dimensional shadow. It had arms and legs, and it, like all four of its limbs. And it reached the zero-pointer just in the nick of time before it could reach any of the students. And she started messing with the robot like it was a chew toy, swinging her head left to right. The robot tried to fight back, but it did nothing but simple love taps to Hati. And in no time, the zero-pointer robot was destroyed. And Hati returns to Koe-san's body. Uraraka looks with wide eyes. Wow, that was amazing. What was your name? I didn't get it. Koe-san blushes and says, "Oh, thank you. My name's Koe-san Shigaraki." Cool. Hey, thanks for the push. I really needed to save myself. It's no problem. You did a great job doing it. Soon, Koe-san carries Uraraka to Recovery Woman, and soon Jigoku shows up. And the three have a chat, and for a while, it would end with Koe-san asking for Uraraka's number so that they can chat again. Uraraka was a bit flustered by that question, like she wanted her number, but she just gives it to her anyway. They both say their see ya laters, and 2 weeks would pass, and both of them would have gotten their acceptance letters, with both of them getting extra points for saving Uraraka. Koe-san says, well, it's more like she saved herself, so I'm not going to give myself those extra points. Yeah, me neither, said Jigoku. The message continues to Aizawa, who said that he'll keep the end of his promise and make sure that Nezu's their teacher, and welcomes them to UA University. The two explode with excitement and they hug each other while jumping up and down. And they would show Tomura, and they would call All for One on the phone. He would congratulate both of them, and All for One says that he had a surprise for both of them, and he wanted to start with Koe-san's surprise first, and tells the three of them to get ready for a road trip tomorrow. They had a hard time, Koe-san and Jigoku had a hard time sleeping for the excitement of being accepted into UA University and the most powerful mind in the world going to teach them. Not to mention, there was a surprise that their father figure had for them. They had a hard time sleeping. It's the next day, and the four of them, Koe-san, Tomura, and Jigoku, along with All for One, were on a bullet train. All for One talks to Koe-san about Hati, and that he's done a lot of research, and he thinks that she and Hati will like this surprise very much. Koe-san and Hati were sitting on the edge of their seats, wondering what he's hiding. Soon, they take a plane to an island called Lingvi, and they were taken to an elevator that went down. The ride on the elevator was so long, it was like they were passing the crust of the earth and straight towards the earth's core. They make it to their destination. They enter a laboratory, and there were scientists, there was a huge power conduit, there were like multitude of rooms, and there was a security room. It was all state-of-the-art security. All for One says, ever since the day I found you, Koe-san, and Hati and you told me about the history of Norse mythology, and it was all true, I grew fascinated by it. So fascinated, I had to look deeper into it. The story on Norse mythology may not have good consistency, but with what Hati told me, I was able to find the truth. Please, come on. They follow him down a hallway, and there was a single door just at the end of it, and soon they come across that door. That's where your surprise holds, Koe-san and Hati. All for One opens the door. He gestures her to enter inside, and as they enter, it had a bed and a very large window, almost like a sort of observatory. And down below, when she looked out the window, what was down below shook her and Hati to their core. For what was down below was a giant wolf figure, covered in what looks like red threads. Hati's eyes widen, and she says in a surprising tone, Father? And that's where I'm going to end this What If. My god, this story is getting more and more juicy by the time that I read it. I love this story so far. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this What If. Make sure to give this story a like if you liked it. And if you made it to the end of this video, consider yourselves #bless, and I will see you all in the next episode. Goodbye.